Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Head over to audibletrial.com/jumbled and get your free 30-day trial and a free audiobook. We've got more information on this great sponsor coming up later in the show. But for now, let's just get into it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Jumbled, your favorite podcast about nothing. I'm Zach.
I'm Jonny, and today we have a very special guest, entrepreneur, genius, mad scientist, and is going to tell us about how the world is going to end, at least how I think the world's going to end. Our dear friend, Greg. Greg, welcome to Jumbled.
Hey, Jonny. It's great intro.
Was that too sensual for you? Welcome to Jumbled.
Yeah, John put on a sexy voice for me. I like that.
Very late night FM radio voice right there. That was actually an AM radio voice right there.
Was that? Oh, that is an AM radio.
That's
My dad
a
always
very
said I had a
AM
face for radio, so
Boy, was he right.
I found my calling. Anyways, before we get to Jumbled, so the topic of tonight is artificial intelligence, machine learning, Skynet, all of those things.
Skynet too, hey?
Greg is our resident expert.
Yeah.
He studies. I'm going to do your bio really bad justice here.
Oh, please do.
Watch me butcher this. So I call Greg Dr. Greg, even though he doesn't have a PhD, but I'm fairly confident he has 2 master's degrees in mathematics and like computer science or something. He's an entrepreneur who has a pretty kick-ass musical app that's based around machine learning. So he obviously knows a thing or two, and clearly has a passion for this world, which is why we brought him on to, basically confirm my fears that robots are going to kill us all. Unless the aliens save us, but that will be next week with Jer.
What was the name of the alien that you guys were talking about? The Area 51 alien.
Oh, what was his name?
That was following you around and probing. A lot of probing.
Oh, God damn it. That's going to bug me now.
I was thinking about it earlier.
You know what? We never made a T-shirt or anything to commemorate.
And this is why the Booty Bandit. His name was something Booty Bandit.
Yeah, right.
Fuck, he's gonna come back.
J-Rod.
That's right.
Totally J-Rod.
Boy, J-Rod. J-Rod's gonna save the day from Skynet. Okay, Greg. Real question on a scale from 1 to 10. How concerned about AI should I be?
In our generation, like right now.
Yes. Like in my lifespan, thinking I have roughly 20 years left to live.
That's pretty low. Very low. What high-risk lifestyle are you living?
Well,
Greg,
did you miss the part where he mainlined some black tar heroin just like 2 minutes ago, man? You weren't paying attention?
No,
your butthole. Sense. It goes real quick.
No, it was in your dick. It was in your dick, dude.
No, you gotta meet in the middle. You go from both sides.
Oh, fair. Okay.
So, I would say a 1 out of 10.
A 1? Really?
Yeah.
In 20 years.
A
so
straight up 1, maybe 0.5 out of 10.
Nothing to worry about. The deep fake stuff is what
I'd say that the rationale behind that is so I think everyone in this world of AI, we don't really get that question a lot because everyone kind of knows where AI is at, and I think that the media over sensationalizes a lot of advancements in AI and makes it seem like maybe there's a Skynet situation because it's cool to think about science fiction in that way. And to that point, if you think about where we were in 1980 or, when I was born in the late 80s and thinking about growing up without internet, and bam, now we're in an era with internet and we can share things instantaneously. And there's so many advancements in technology it's mind-boggling and insane to think that I have to explain to my employees simple things about broadband modems and the sound that it makes when you're trying to get on the internet, and they're just I don't get it, and saying like, Mom, get off the phone.
Right.
I'm on Napster.
They'll never know the real suffering.
Dial up, dude. That was the worst. Yeah. 56K. Oh man,
but
lovely.
Aren't we learning like faster and exponentially than before. So like, are we not, is that curve not catching up because we're getting smarter? And then there's always the argument of like AI is not a risk until it becomes like conscious, I guess, or whatever, and then it starts programming itself because then it will learn faster than we can. Like, what about all that shit you hear about on some conspiracy stuff, or obviously, you know, sci-fi nerds, maybe fan fiction, that's basically saying that once we turn the switch on, we can't turn it off and it will grow faster than we can control it?
So yeah, so that's sort of what I'm talking about with sci-fi and how it's kind of implanted that that notion in our brain about what AI is and where it's headed. I think currently, right now, we're at a stage where we have not general AI. So general AI, I would say, is something that's an autonomous machine. It makes decisions for itself, whether or not it's sentient enough to be able to program its own routines and really tweak its own code and stuff like that. That's kind of another conversation. So that's general AI. So basically, if you think of Battlestar Galactica, where they used to have robots that looked like robots, they were basically tin cans, and then eventually they evolved and came back, and then they looked like humans, and they were trying to figure out essentially a Turing test, right? Like, if you can sit across from a robot and have a conversation with them behind a screen and not be able to peg whether they're a robot or a human. So that's essentially, you know, Alan Turing's test, right? So that's a general AI, right? We're nowhere close to that. Nowhere close. Although a lot of Japanese YouTube videos would have you think otherwise with all the synthetic beings and, you know, all that shit. But
oh, sure. What is it? Sophia?
Yeah.
Right.
So Sophia, and she kind of has a famous, this is again, an instance where the media completely over sensationalized, you know, something in the AI world. So Sophia went on a talk show, and there's some clips on YouTube that you can look up after. And she says something like, you know, I'm going to take over the world or something like that. And then the media outlets just went insane. And they're like, see, she's going to kill, they're going to kill us all. They're going to kill us all. But yeah, so my point is right now we're very far from general AI, where we're programming autonomous robots that, you know, think for themselves, have feelings, are able to respond rationally to questions, and questions that aren't known beforehand. Right now, we're very much in the age of specialized AI. So if you think of the very simplest version of AI, so like a machine learning problem called classification, where you feed it data, and it just says, in the simplest case, binary. Like, is it a cat? Is it not a cat? And there's a lot of like Google image AI things that just, is it a cat or not a cat? The famous example being in Silicon Valley, the show about startups, where Jin Yang makes the program hot dog or no hot dog, right? And then it gets picked up to in a way that he didn't expect it, where you know, it's flagging dicks in pictures and video streams and stuff like that, right? So that's a very specialized AI. And to do that, you would take a whole bunch of pictures of hot dogs or penises or vaginas and stuff like that, and then tag. So a human would have to go through that whole data set. What a wonderful job that would be, tagging penises and vaginas. Dick, not dick. Dick, not dick. Dick, dick. And you just go through this whole data set, and eventually the machine will be like, yeah, I've seen this before. That's a giant penis.
Seeing this dick pattern.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be specialized AI. It's very well suited to a specific task. At my company, Fredible, we take in audio recordings of musicians, and we output basically whether a pitch is on or off. So a pitch being, you know, a note, if you think on a piano keyboard. So there's 88 different notes that could have been played, and we just basically binarize it. So we say off, on for every single note, and then write that to sheet music for musicians. So again, nothing, like, it's cool AI, don't get me wrong. And we feed it a whole bunch of training examples of, you know, guitarists playing Metallica songs and like a whole bunch of stuff, so it learns what music is. Doesn't mean that it really understands music. I mean, it sort of does. Like, it understands harmonic content of music.
Or that it could create music itself.
Yeah, so there's kind of two versions of AI. One is inferential AI. So it's machines, well, basically machine learning AI that makes decisions. So whether that's like predicting stock prices, for example, or for insurance, trying to predict insurance premiums, like how risky an individual is, to classification, which is basically like on off. Is it in this group of things or not in this group of things, right? And then there's generative AI. And generative AI is basically, I'm going to learn from a whole bunch of data in this domain, and I'm going to use that to make a perception of my world around me, and use that as essentially prototypes to create new things in that vein. So a very familiar example that came out somewhat recently was they took a whole corpus of Beethoven music and trained the machine to think about it and get familiar with the patterns that he uses, and then said, okay, now that you know all about that, generate me a brand new Beethoven song, even though he's been dead for years, right? So that's generative AI. So kind of two very, very different streams. So my company is inferential. So we take audio and we just write out the notes that were played rather than generating new music.
Gotcha.
And certainly in the artistic world, people have a lot of issues with generative AI because it's going to take away, all the creative freedoms of artists, and there's a whole, like, not just in my field, in a lot of different fields, like it's going to put a lot of people out of work and stuff like that, right?
Right.
I like that you summarized probably 10 years of education and profession and research into Fredible to, basically we take a note and we say, is it this note or not? And then we put it on a piece of paper.
That's literally all I do. It's literally all I do.
It's so much more complex than that.
It's really not. Everyone thinks that machine learning is this like wonderful black magic sort of thing, and to some extent,
you're a fucking wizard.
A data wizard. But honestly, it's like, yes, it does require some mathematics and stuff like that, but at the core, that's what it's doing. You're just sending it examples of things that you want it to learn, and saying this is what it is, and then posing new things that it hasn't seen before, and just hoping that it's able to generalize and make smart decisions about new stuff. That's machine learning.
So was that Beethoven example a real example?
Yeah, no, that's a real example.
I think
did
I recall
it release
that.
the music? Did you hear the music? Was it any good?
No, I think I did hear it. I think it was. I think we need to fact check this, but I think it was Google Magenta. So I think it's part of their Google Brain team that was working on that. Anyways, I think that there's a whole bunch of news articles that you can go and look up and kind of see the examples and stuff like that. But
what about the two AIs that they fired up in front of each other and they created their own language? Myth that one.
Oh, so that was Facebook, I believe. They put two chatbots against each other. And they essentially, from what I understand, I read the article pretty briefly, but it seemed like they just learned a quicker shorthand way to communicate with each other. So it wasn't necessarily in coherent English that you and I would send information through. Almost like a code, I would say. So, for example, if you and I wanted to speak to each other, and we did this a lot. So, for example, like you and Allie, you probably get very good at reading her and being able to communicate her with the least amount of words possible. So it's almost like you two have a code kind of going back and forth. That's essentially, from what I understand, what the computers were doing with each other. Yeah.
Interesting. All right.
So there's actually, I want to quickly segue
go.
into that. So there's a third area of machine learning that's kind of rampant right now and is actually pretty cool. It's been around since the late 70s or early 80s, but it's called reinforcement learning. And the segue here is it often ends with really weird outcomes. So things that you wouldn't expect it to come up with to reach an objective or a task. And you don't tell it how to do something. You just tell it what to do in terms of like, what's your objective? What's your goal? So for example, if you're teaching a reinforcement learning robot to walk, you wouldn't say how to move your limbs. You just say get to point A and give it rewards if it gets closer to point A, and don't give it a reward if it's going anywhere, you know, in an orientation that's not towards A, right?
How do you reward the program?
So it's based on dopamine in the human brain. So every time that we do something good in our head, right? So whether that's, you know, we win at gambling or, yeah, we jerk off, Johnny. Yeah. I'm serious.
Wow,
that's a huge dopamine hit. It is. So anytime that we get a dopamine hit in our brain, we say, I want to do that again. That felt awesome. Let's do that. And that's how we reinforce our behaviors. So we're going to keep doing behaviors that give us dopamine, right? And for every person, that's different what that dopamine hit is, right? So same thing with machines, right? So the goal of the machine, so what you program the machine to learn is, how do I maximize my reward? How do I maximize the amount of digital dopamine that I'm getting? And that's that's its sole objective. I don't care how I do this. I just want to explore a whole bunch of different things that I can do in my world, whatever that is. And I just want the maximum amount of reward that I can possibly get. So this was coming back to Alan Turing. So the guy that made the Turing test, this was his proposed method of training machines. So instead of imposing thoughts about how a machine should reason and do things, you think about the machine as a child, a little baby, just like, you know, if you bring a human child into this world, it knows nothing about anything around it. And you basically reinforce it. If it does something that you like, you give it, pat on the back, you give it a food reward, something like that. And eventually it learns that was a good thing to do. I learned something, right? And it's more likely to do that again. So same thing with machines. And really, really funny things happen. So Google's team was trying to teach a wireframe body to run, and just said, go to point A, and it comes up with just the wackiest ways to run, with like arms flailing and stuff like that, trying to get momentum to move forward. And it's absolutely absurd to watch. It's another really...
Sounds terrifying.
It is terrifying.
How big is this thing?
What's that?
How big is this thing?
No, it's a virtual wireframe model.
Okay.
So yeah, you can search it up on...
And is it plugged in? Because that's I think the easy solution to Skynet is just don't build a robot that has legs or hands, and make it be hardwired so you can just unplug the fucker.
So you basically want to make a nugget robot, no arms, no legs, just sit there and ponder about the world.
Not on an internet connection, just on a local network connection.
Well, of course, if we learned anything from Battlestar Galactica, it's that, you know, you have to segregate your networks. They can't be connected to the outside. Yes. That's a very good point, Zach.
Okay, but for real though, what is the digital dopamine? Like, how do you pre-program that program to say, when this happens, this is a positive? Or is it like, how do you complement?
It's a shit ton of ones and no zeros.
Just fucking hammering that one key? Is that, like, how does that work?
So basically there's a counter that you probably name the variable reward, and and there's basically a loop, and it's called an agent. So the robot will be in a particular state in its environment, and it has a whole bunch of options. So you program what are the steps that it could take. So what kind of actions could I take at any particular time, and it'll go ahead and take an action, and then you will give it a reward, and you'll say that was a good thing to do, that was a bad thing to do. So you can make up how big that dopamine hit is. So a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. So you kind of make that reward.
That's terrifying.
So there's something called exploration versus exploitation, and it's kind of exactly what humans do all the time. So exploration, if you think about you in a new situation that you've never been in before, you're going to try and explore a lot of different options because you don't really know what's good, right? So for example, when I go get bubble tea, when I first started drinking bubble tea, I was like, what the fuck is bubble tea? I have no idea. I'm just going to try a whole bunch of different bubble teas. And then eventually...
the most great thing ever. I'll just get one of all of them, and then I'll decide.
Yeah, so I did that. I tried almost every single flavor of bubble tea, and then I realized that you could have combinations of bubble tea. So then I was having... So eventually I came upon watermelon honeydew, and now I just exploit every single time. I know that that's the highest dopamine hit for my brain, and I just exploit the shit out of honeydew watermelon.
I've known you for at least 15 years, and I think I just finally figured out how your brain works, and I'm absolutely terrified. 'Cause, you know what I do when I go to a place that I don't know? I mean, I'll eat anything. We talked about last week how I tried prairie oysters for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put just about anything in my mouth. But when I go to a place that I've never been before, I look at the menu, and my default is, because I'm a fat piece of shit, is what's the biggest?
Mm-hmm.
What has the most meat or substance that I enjoy the most? Mm-hmm. And then what is closest to something that I know I like? And then I just get that, and then I exploit.
Yeah. So you've just defined your reward function. That's literally your reward function. That's what makes you happy. So you have conditioned yourself through getting a reward in the past to making that action again, right?
But what if my bubble tea experience is a faster way to get smaller rewards, and yours took a long time, but you're getting that big payout? Like, there's probably so much in this world that I'm, missing out. I gotta go get bubble tea.
John, welcome. You just described the whole research methodology and the current state of research in reinforcement learning.
I'm a brilliant. I made it. Look, Mom.
That's literally what researchers are trying to figure out right now.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah. Do I explore in the hope that I find something better, or do I exploit and try and accumulate a lot of really small rewards? Or maybe it is the best already. Who knows, right?
I find this very interesting that this question is being approached. Obviously, it has been from philosophers, but now from scientists and robots. What an interesting question and different ways to approach it.
Well, I think less, like, there is some philosophical elements in it, like, what am I doing? Why am I here? But that's more existential for like a non-sentient computer. I think it's more like biology related. So we're kind of looking at biological functions, and we're trying to look at things that we know, or we really don't know a lot about the human brain. I think we like to think that we know a lot more, but we really don't know how the hell it works. It's basically a black box.
Right.
But we're basically trying to emulate biological functions. And that's a lot of machine learning algorithms and things in machine learning and AI and reinforcement learning. They're all just trying to emulate how humans do stuff. So if you've heard probably like a lot of neural network stuff, that's all like kind of mimicking how neurons in the brain fire, like stuff like that. Like we're just kind of looking at what humans do and trying to emulate that because humans are smart. So let's start there.
Sure. I think once we get to the point, and this is probably not happening, but I feel like once we get to the point where with reinforced learning, they figure out how to do the thing, whatever the goal is. If they start getting curious or doing things that are like opposite of what you're expecting, but just hoping to find some other reinforcement, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if that's like way far off in the distance, but
are you basically saying like what happens if we tell that wire program to be like, yo, figure out how to walk to here, and then it decides, fuck that, it's not worth the reward, I'm going to do my own thing?
Yeah, or it's figured out how to walk to there, and now it, wants to figure out what the next objective is.
First it walks to point B, and then it's walking all over you as it kills you because it's a sentient robot with a gun for an arm. Logical jump right there.
What is that company? I think it's called. They're called Boston Dynamics, the robot company. they've created some really amazing robots. There's one of them.
Make that shit. Why do we gotta fuck with that?
There's one that looks like a dog goat brachiosaurus, and it like can climb upstairs, and it can
open
like
doors. That one, the T-Rex, fucking
it's got the little
robot?
the mouth. It unloads the dishes and shit for you.
Yeah,
I mean
that's
they're gonna be
eviscerating
they're gonna be making war weaponry. Like that's the next step.
God damn it, America!
I like how it's immediately America.
Well, it's Boston.
It's fucking America. Let's be honest.
I mean, it's fair.
We didn't celebrate 4th of July together. I made a list of funny things. We'll have to go back on that. Fucking America. Okay, Greg. So one thing that you said there that really caught my attention was talking about AI functioning in like the 70s. And everyone I feel like thinks that AI is a current thing, or just, we just discovered this within the last few years. Mm-hmm. So what are some areas that you probably think would be stupid for us not to know, but where AI has existed that we use on a day-to-day basis that people don't recognize it?
That's a really good question. So the first neural network was programmed by a guy named Rosenblatt in the United States in the late 60s. I forget the actual date. I think like 69 or 68 or something like that. So neural networks, which are the huge craze right now, everyone's throwing around the term deep learning. It was founded in the 60s. The issue back then was that we didn't have the computing power to actually fire through all of the neurons that we do now. We have all of this computing power at our disposal now, rented servers that we can just spin up at a snap of our fingers, right? So that's why we've kind of seen this resurgence of a lot of deep learning sort of things, just because we have the computing power available. But stepping back even further than that, like in the 50s, people were doing artificial intelligence even on pen and paper, like figuring out algorithms to do intelligent things. So if you think of kind of any video game that does pathfinding, so a lot of strategy games like Warcraft 3, any of those, like the Blizzard, StarCraft ones, if you click on a unit and tell it to go to anywhere on the map, it does so somewhat intelligently. Sometimes you fist the desk, right, because it picks a stupid path. But for the most part, it reasons about, like, I'm not going to go up that mountain. That would be a crappy way to go. I'm going to go around this terrain, and there's a wall here. I can't go that way. I'm not just going to bang my head into it, right? So it's a shortest path algorithm. You're trying to look for the shortest kind of path that you could take.
The path of least resistance.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
The path of least resistance from point A to point B, right? So that algorithm is called A-star. It's called A-star pathfinding. It's in virtually every video game that we play today that does pathfinding. And that algorithm is old as shit. It's so old. It's fast, and that's why the video game industry uses it. And I think now we're kind of experimenting with new... I shouldn't say I'm not in the video game industry, but they are experimenting with kind of new algorithms for pathfinding and stuff like that, just because we have more computing power available. But at the same time, that computing power is now... Basically, it's like a tug of war. Every single frame that you render in a video game, some goes to audio, some goes to video, a lot goes to video, some goes to AI scripts, a lot goes in many, many different directions. So in the end, you pretty much have the same to work with, so people just do A-star. So it's a really, really old algorithm, like I think from like the 60s or... I think 60s. I'd have to look that up, but it's really, really old, and it's still in use today. People use it all the time. So that's an example of AI, right?
Good old Rosenblatt.
Well, yeah, he was doing neural networks. He wasn't doing A-star. I can't remember the guy that did A-star.
Gotcha.
But
damn it, Zach. Yeah. I'm the expert, okay? We've already decided.
Fair.
So, knowing that now that I'm safe, at least from robots.
For now. In the next 20 years.
in the next
Yeah,
20
yeah, for your
years.
entire lifespan, John.
What is one thing that you're most excited for with AI that like within our lifespan?
That's a really interesting question.
If I don't have to worry about them killing me, what are they going to do good for me?
I think
Aside from the Japanese sex robots.
I think I'm most excited for the point where we start really mastering specialized AI. So I was talking about specialized AI being like, I'm really good at recognizing images, or I'm really good at, doing the Fredable problem where we're doing, is the note on or off, that sort of thing. And being able to combine these so that there's kind of a multimodal decision-making machine. So we're able to reason about multiple different senses, I would say. I think that that's really, really cool. And right now we're totally not at a point where we're really doing that. So to be able to respond to audio input, to have visual input, and then really reason about those two things together. I think we're kind of at the cusp of going in that research direction, but I don't think we've mastered the parts to be able to put them together yet. And I think that would be so, so cool, because that's starting to get into more general AI, right? Being able to respond to a whole bunch of different stimuli around you and make decisions about it. So I think I'm most excited for that. I don't know if we're going to see that in our generation. I have no idea. We're still at the point where, cars aren't driving themselves. And actually Elon Musk was, I think on his Twitter or something like that, he's like, we really have to buckle down. The hardest issues we have is like Walmart parking lots. Like crazy as shit environments, right? Like so many different things happening. And really to be able to reason in that environment, you need so many different
scenarios.
Yeah, like so many different senses. Like you need to be looking, you need to be listening, you need to be cognizant of things around you, right? So it's really, really tough. It's not just looking at video of a road and following a line, which is essentially what self-driving cars do right now, right? I'm oversimplifying for sure, but
whoa, Johnny, whoa, calm down there, boy. Here's a sugar cube. Guys, it's July. We need to talk about our sponsor, Audible. Head over to audibletrial.com/jumbled to get your free 30-day trial and a free audiobook. The book that we're going to talk about this month is A Polaroid Guy in a Snapchat World by David Spade. Narrated by David Spade. It's about 6.5 hours long. This book, David Spade reflects on his SNL days and also talks about his life now through a series of takes such as why it's getting harder to date younger women, the dad life, and being the battle-tested vet on set. Whether he's talking about the far too easy task of breaking up via iMessage or feeding the trolls and losing online, when David displays his humor and filthy mind on being middle-aged, he's in a league of his own. This audiobook was created with Audible in mind. It's pretty cool. They wrote it and they created it. And this was the end goal, to get on Audible. So head over and find the new comedic memoir, which will take you along for the sometimes embarrassing and always hilarious ride of getting older in our fleeting Snapchat world. Guys, that's the book. If you want to listen to that, great. If you want to listen to something else, hey, cool. Just head over to audibletrial.com/jumbled. They got all the books. Like I've said before, numerous times, you guys know, they've got so many books, so you're going to find something you like. I guarantee it, and we guarantee that you are going to like the rest of this episode. So let's get back to it.
What are you guys most excited for?
I think there's a lot of, eventually, I think there could be some medical benefit, like almost like somewhat of a nurse, maybe not like a doctor, but if you say you have like all these, if you have equipment at your house that you're able to submit this data to a machine, or they're able to, view you through a webcam, or with thermal technology or something like that, be able to take temperature and give you a potential diagnosis, or be able to pass that on to a doctor. I feel like that's a pretty cool step that could that I could see as being something that could happen potentially within our lifetime. If it's attainable, that would be pretty neat.
I think that one actually is attainable. I think we will totally see that in the not so distant future. So essentially you're kind of describing like the Star Trek tricorder or something like that, where you kind of do like a scan over the body.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know if it's going to be, we'll probably need to be a little bit more invasive than just something that just goes whoosh over your body.
No, sure. I mean,
exactly
like
what's up.
Take blood pressure or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
But we're actually totally at the point where there are researchers that are making essentially segmentation or classification on mammograms, for example, to look for tumors in a lot of different tissues, and saying, hey, this area you should look at in more detail, because we're 80% certain that there's probably some sort of cancerous growth there, and you should probably check that out. So it's not meant to replace a radiologist or a physician. It's more an aid. Just, let's say the radiologist hasn't had his coffee in the morning and just needs, a little bit of attention to a certain part, right? Because we're humans. We miss things, right? And so do machines, right? Probably because they just haven't seen enough data yet. So I think it's a good opportunity for those kind of people to work in tandem, to really give people the best care possible. I know that there's startups that are working on cheap ultrasound AI, so that you can, for example, plug in a little ultrasound component into your iPad, and being able to say, hey, my knee's really sore. I don't know what the heck is going on with it, but I'm just going to pass it over my knee and be able to compare that to thousands and thousands of different data examples of normal knees.
Whoa.
And be able to say, yeah, there's an anomaly here, or no, this looks normal. So really as a precursor for self-screening, to say, no, I probably don't need to go to the doctor and waste taxpayer resources, when it's just something I just need to put up my knee for a little bit and chill out for a bit. Of course, that's kind of dangerous if we empower people to use AI for decision making for themselves and they're not experts, right? So for example,
WebMD is, guys. You just described WebMD.
Yeah. So I was going to say WebMD. That's took the words right out of my mouth, Johnny.
Oh yeah, that's America's healthcare plan, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yep. I don't have a personal care physician. I just do WebMD, and then
you're your own personal care physician. You're always available.
Yeah. Yep, and I'm a massive hypochondriac, so we're good.
Perfect.
We're good.
All right. What else should we know? Like, what's something that's on the cutting edge or about to break through, or that you're hoping will break through, and then what real world implication would it have? Like, what's being worked on right now that us plebs don't know about?
I think whenever there is a giant breakthrough in machine learning or anything like that, it's so quickly publicized, and a lot of times the mathematical groundwork will break beforehand, and then people get wind of it in the research community and just start building out applications of it that are, I guess, immediately consumable, and then it gets super media attention. Because no media person cares about some mathematical paper. They just don't, because it's so abstract. It has no tangible benefit to a normal person, right? It's more like the structure and the framework to actually build something amazing out of that. So I don't know if I have like something that's super cutting edge that people don't really know about. I think that's one of the great benefits of our scientific framework right now, is that people publish immediately when they have an amazing finding that's really going to impact someone, instead of hoarding that intellect and knowledge to something that's not going to be used. That's why we have patents. Not that scientific ideas are always patented, But really, it's putting your idea out there. You're essentially letting everyone know what the idea is and exactly how it operates, but then protecting yourself, through a patent, right? But I don't think it's like that. I don't think it's I came up with a great discovery and now I'm just going to sit on it, and at least not in the scientific, the research community. So I'm not really aware of anything.
Okay. What was something that you were excited to talk to us about regarding AI tonight?
I was actually most excited to talk about reinforcement learning. It's not my forte. I have taken some courses in it and studied a bit at a graduate level with reinforcement learning. I just think it's a really, really novel idea, and just like a really cool way of thinking about how to train machines. Like thinking of them as humans. I think that's brilliant. Mm-hmm. And then probably Battlestar Galactica. I'm a huge Battlestar Galactica fan. I freaking love that show. I think
my experiences with Battlestar Galactica. Are you ready?
Yep.
1, my dad loves Battlestar Galactica and made me watch it, the original, when I was a kid. Fucking hated it.
He made you watch it, like glued your eyes open. You watch this, John. You watch the Cylons.
It's whipping me. No, he just watched it all the time. So, and I just had this like little aha moment about myself. So I really hate rewatching anything more than once. Very few things in this world I will watch multiple times. The Office.
Unless it's Deadpool.
The Office, Deadpool, Band of Brothers.
Oh, Band of Brothers.
And
probably anything X-Men or Wolverine related, right?
Yeah, some Marvel, but even Marvel, like those are like two for me. I watched Infinity War twice and was like, I don't need to watch this again.
Yeah,
and
it's
Endgame the same.
Very
few
Endgame was
things that
really
I can watch
long.
multiple times. Yeah, my dad has probably seen every Star Trek episode, every Battlestar Galactica episode, and every Stargate episode at least 10 times.
Hey, your dad's a super nerd. I
really
had
is.
no idea.
He actually, if I should have told you to talk to my dad about Battlestar Galactica, he would have went on some fucking tangent with you, and I never would have seen you guys for the rest of the night. Fucking loves that show. So growing up watching what at the time I felt was really cheesy. 2, playing Battlestar Galactica board game.
Oh, hell yeah.
At Pilipchuk's house and getting to be the Cylon and fucking around with everyone. Even though I wasn't actually the Cylon, I just made everyone think I was. I double-crossed myself. So that was enjoyable. That was a plus. And then 3, I tried to watch the new Battlestar Galactica, and I think I just had such a bad taste that I couldn't get into it.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot with TV series or something like that. When you get an initial thought about what something is and your sentiment towards it, and you can't go back to it. You can't readdress it. So yeah. I think I feel you there. But you also associate. Oh, so go ahead, Zach.
No, I was gonna say on that same sort of line of thinking. I had a babysitter growing up, and
I like where this is going.
No, well, she was an older lady, and she had
even better.
She had way too many children at her residence, but
experienced.
Yes, she would make us sit and watch her soap operas with her.
Oh my god, that just blow my brains out.
Like sand through the hourglass. These are the days
of our lives. Yeah, exactly.
I shit you not. I think I was talking to my mom about it because she used to watch those when I was a kid, and I remember her watching those and just being miserable. And this is how I'm convinced that robots exist or aliens exist, because all of those fucking people that were on that show when I was like 10 are still on that show doing the exact same thing as the exact same characters.
Well, but they've died about 14. Changed. They've died about 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, well, you need a vacation occasionally.
And some of them are the evil clones, right?
Yeah,
evil clones.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
It's just amazing that show is still motoring on.
It is pretty amazing. Also, your board game strategy where you double cross yourself, I love doing that. It is my favorite thing to do. Just like throwing a little chaos there, it's beautiful.
Well, the reality is when we play board games, the chances of me like beating our friend Anto or Bobbly pretty low. So I just go straight wild card, and now I think I definitely got it from you. Just wild card, just chaos.
I call it exploration, like John.
Oh yes, more intellectual wild card. Exploration. So I'm fearful that we're making a name for ourselves in our little board game community of just being too disruptive. But
well, I do it all the time. It's a differing of objectives, right? Like Anto's objective is win. You've heard him before. He goes, "I like winning." He says it all the time, right? And for me, I play board games to have fun. That's my objective, right? So I'm looking for strategies that are fun to me, not necessarily one that's going to win. And like if it does end up winning, so much the better. But we were playing this Viking board game. I think Valhalla or something like that. I mean, that sounds pretty Viking. But the whole point of the game, how you win the game in the eyes of the rule book, and how it was explained to me by Anto, was you have to get Vikings onto the board, and then you have to kill them off so that they go to Valhalla, like the promised land or whatever. And they gain glory because, they died fighting, and you get victory points for all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I just want to build the biggest fucking army that I possibly can so that no one can put their new Vikings on the board. And I won. Completely broke the game just from just doing my own thing. Like, it was so I had so much fun. My army was fucking huge. No one was dying. And no one wanted to mess with me because my army was so massive. So I just never fought anybody.
There's a similar strategy in Monopoly where you just buy four houses and you never upgrade to the hotel, and you just deplete all of the houses from the banker.
Yeah, I've heard of that strategy before. Apparently, it completely breaks the game. Like Monopoly is not a game anymore with that strategy.
But that's what it was designed. That's what the game was designed to teach you, and that's why that mechanic is in there. And why it specifically says in the rule book you can't use any other marker or symbol to represent extra houses. Yeah, that the guy who invented Monopoly made it to be like, this is how bad our current economy system will be, the capitalism.
So it's a life learning tool.
Dude, you want to play that game and piss everyone off? Just do that. Buy all the cheap properties. Don't buy utilities. Don't buy trains. Just buy all the cheap properties you can and start building the cheapest houses possible, and just deplete all the houses.
Could you imagine being that guy that's like, nope, consult the rule book, please. It says that's me. No markers.
That is 100% me when I play that game.
Get rules
fuck
learned.
You can only build what's in the box. You can only build what's in the box.
It's true.
The other one I like to do, because Al is really good at Settlers of Catan, and I fucking hate that game because I lost all the time. And then we also played a lot with her and her sister, like me, her and her sister, and they would always team up on me, whether intentionally or not. We haven't decided that fully. So I just stopped playing the game for a long time because it was just pointless. And then, Al kind of bugged me and had some more friends that wanted to play. And I was like, fine, I'm going to play. And I become a sheep farmer, more lovingly called a goat farmer, because that's what I call them, goats. And I just get all of the goats. That's my only objective, and just ruin the entire economy.
Yeah. You're depleting, you're making it sheep high value, which in the game, maybe not so much.
No, and it drives Allie nuts now when we do that. I'm just like, fuck it, I want all of the goats.
Well, there's actually a lot of games like that where that is a strategy. Like if you, it's called like min-max, I guess in AI, where you're trying to maximize your reward, but you're also trying to minimize everyone else's reward. So it's like a constant battle between, do I do a move that's really good for me, or do I do a move that's really shitty for my opponent, right? Because you're trying to throw them off their game. And that's a strategy, right? Yeah. That's how the early
so
chess solvers worked. they were all min-max trees. So like looking at what's the best action that I can take that also minimizes my opponent's reward. That's basically how they
wasn't there. I'm sure this is AI. There is a computer system that beat like a chess champion back in like the.
Yeah, it was Kasparov, I think.
It
was something blue. What's the name of it?
I can't recall.
It was something blue.
But along those lines, I'm sort of worried about like, for a lot of these games are going to like electronic, like, so like Monopoly has their own games, so you play against the computer. Is the computer going to constantly get smarter and smarter through these repetitious actions and learn how to play the game better because it's a computer, you know?
Yeah, so if you think about it, computers can go through simulations so much faster than humans can. You can actually, a way that a lot of these are trained, especially for games where there's really strict constraints over what can be done in your action space in the game, you actually put one AI against another AI and they just duke it out and they learn from mistakes that one person made randomly, perhaps, or stuff that they're trying to exploit a certain strategy, just like humans do, right? Like they go into a game being like, all right,
they fuck with each other?
I'm going to do sheeps. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a deficit of sheep in the game, and it's going to, screw up the economy, and that'll be the one strategy. And then the other AI goes, all right, how do I try and minimize that strategy, and how do I beat that strategy? And one time it might lose because it, whatever it tried didn't work, and the next time maybe it does better, so it learns how to deal with that strategy. If you think about humans, it takes so long to go through simulations. Whereas a computer can just be like, all right, I'm done. I went through all those actions. Yeah. Took those actions, and it sucked. I'm not going to do that again, right? So it's just like really, really fast feedback, I would say. Whereas human feedback is kind of slow. Like we actually have to go through all the steps and stuff in real time, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of thought about. So there's a reinforcement learning algorithm that's exactly that. It's called Q-learning, and essentially it acts online and offline. Online being I'm taking actions in my world in real time and I'm learning about them, and then it goes offline and it's essentially sleeping. So there's kind of like a philosophical argument about sleep, like why do we sleep, right? And a lot of people think that we sleep because it's a way for us to reason about our world and take actions that maybe we wouldn't normally take and learn from them, and kind of reflect on things that we've done in the past and really learn about that. And then we can use that information in our online world, right? So we're not going to make that same mistake that we made in our dream because it's a pretty shitty outcome. So a lot of people think that's why we dream. And then
that makes sense.
But no one really knows why we dream. We're just kind of pondering thoughts about why that biological process happens, right? And we have some ideas about why it happens, right? So Q-learning again takes that biological process and tries to integrate that into an AI learning tool, right? Like let's put sleep in there, human sleep. Let's put the AI to sleep and think about possible scenarios and stuff like that. So that's another really, like, everything mirrors biology, I would say, now the more I'm reflecting on it, which is pretty interesting, actually.
Is that just because we're creating it?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah, like what we understand.
We're just basing it off of what we know.
Exactly. Like that's what we understand. We're in our own shell. We're in our mind. We think we know what we're doing. To some extent we do. To some extent we don't. Right. And we kind of know how mistakes. John doesn't make mistakes. And when we do make mistakes, we learn from them. So we would kind of expect a machine to do the same thing, right? And we know how we teach our offspring, right? That's one thing that we've done for generations is pass knowledge on from ancestors down to children in the new generation, right? Otherwise, the human race is screwed. There's that Joe Rogan episode, and he's always talking about what do humans do? He's like, all we do is make better shit. Nothing is ever, status quo is never enough. We just make better shit. That's all that humans do, right? Make tools, not good enough. Improve the tools, better tools. And to every extent, like, he's totally correct. That's what we do. Like, we're never satisfied with the way things currently are. We always want more money. We always want better everything. And the way to do that is to teach the next generation where to pick up with that knowledge. But one kind of philosophical question that I always get to whenever I start thinking about that is, are we ever going to get to a point in human knowledge where there's so much knowledge to get to the edge, the cusp of human knowledge, that we can't actually learn that in a lifetime, and the human race just stagnates because we actually can't get to that point? It's way too much knowledge for a human to learn in their lifetime.
Sure.
And based on like traditional learning.
Based on traditional learning methods, like, unless we get a Matrix thing going on where we just plug in, and learn kung fu instantly. I don't know. Like, maybe yeah. I think that I think we'll probably nuke ourselves before we get to that point. But
so what you're getting at is we're sort of dependent on computers at this point to do some legwork for us.
Yeah, I think if there's like some shortcuts in that tree of knowledge that we need to learn to get to the very forefront of knowledge, so that we can begin even progressing that in a new generation of researchers and stuff like that. Like, I think that there's probably going to be some corners that need to be cut, or some fundamentals that kind of need to be removed from certain program streams. So I think like things are going to need to be way less general. There's going to be a math person, right? There's going to be a computing scientist, like, right from birth. Like, that's the only way you're going to be able to get right to the edge of human knowledge, is if you start training very, very specialized from a very young age. And to some extent, that's the way our economy and our social system has kind of been going. We're very much specializing as a human species, right? Like, I don't know how to be a commercial fisherman, but I ate fish, right? Like, I don't care. Someone else has got that, and I don't need to bother myself with it, right? Someone else knows physics. I don't really know physics. I know like the equation for a pendulum. That's it, right?
Right.
So I just kind of trust that other humans have my back, and I'm going to be able to eat sushi tomorrow. You know what I mean? So we're very much specializing as a species, and I think it's even going to be worse as we go on.
Do you think we'll hit that capacity even with that specification, like, lines? Like,
what do you mean?
Well, you said that we would not be able to learn all of the knowledge in a lifetime. Well, obviously that would exist now from, like,
true.
If I pump out a baby, can I teach it everything there is to know in the world before it dies?
Yeah, I would say
probably
not. So I think we're at that stage, but I just mean like to get to the very edge of human knowledge in a particular field. And so, for example, like me as a computing scientist, in a specialization, yeah. Because that's where I think we're really limited. Like, I think the way that we've structured our society is because we have reached that problem where we can't teach everyone to be a master of everything. Or else we'd be, really shitty at many different things. So we've kind of specialized, right? Like, everyone has their thing. That's their contribution to society, right? So we've very much gotten to that point already. So my point was, even on a very specialized track, what if we can't get to the edge of human knowledge, right?
Okay, yeah.
And that's kind of a really frightening thought for me. And I was talking to Kelly, my wife, about this, and she was like, it was right before bed. She was half sleeping, and I'm just sitting there, like, lying awake, freaking the fuck out. And I'm like, what if we can't reach the edge of human knowledge anymore, Kelly? Then she just told me to go to bed.
It's the little things that keep us up at night. Right?
Those are the things that keep you up at night. Oh, that's amazing. Wouldn't there just be sub specializations, like that's how it would just, that tree, it would just keep cascading.
I think so. Like, I think that, and I think to some extent we've already sort of done that. Like, within the field of physics,
we're
there's
just constantly doing it.
Astronomy, and there's like a whole bunch of different subspecializations. And I think we're even then to subspecialize beyond that and keep having this whole hierarchy of different subspecializations. I think that's totally going to happen. And I think it's like definitely going to happen in our lifetime. What's going to be really interesting is to the point where we're putting our kids through school, and you as a parent kind of need to predetermine what their path is going to be. Like, are you going to be a scientist? Are you going to be like in social studies? Are you going to be an art major?
Yeah.
Because you can't really learn everything. Maybe there's a year of like
some commie shit you're talking about right now.
What's that?
I said this is some commie shit you're talking about right
now. Don't you see the hammer and sickle flag on my wall, John?
Yeah, exactly. So, did we just disprove that your greatest fear that night can never happen if it's the rule of halves, right? If you keep splitting something in half, do you ever get to zero? And so if knowledge keeps branching off to other specializations, then we'll never reach that peak, because, like, for an example, at some point math was literally simple addition and subtraction, right? But now you can be an expert in, geometry, or an expert in calculus, right? Like, and those might not overlap. I'm not a math guy, obviously, but so, like, we just keep branching down into smaller and smaller trees, so then you never really hit that peak because you're just getting more and more and more specialized. So your biggest fear is not a big deal. Don't worry about it. Worry about the fucking robots.
That was the most concise counter argument. I'm sleeping soundly tonight, John.
Resident expert. Boom, boom. Not just a pretty face.
That's an amazing counter argument. So my counter argument to that counter argument was, what happens when you split in half, and then even that half becomes not enough to learn in a human lifetime, but then you just split that in half. I guess it comes down to whether the halves amount to anything worthwhile.
There you go. You gotta define what the knowledge caps are.
True.
You have to.
True.
Interesting.
But I think
so we're both right and we're both wrong.
I think so.
I hope you sleep horribly tonight.
So even the ways that we've taught the next generation has totally changed over the course of the years. Like, it used to be a mentorship model because there was less people on this earth, right? So you would just have a mentor, and they would be an expert in whatever you're learning. So whether it's blacksmithing, you would go to the blacksmith, they would take on a protege, and they would teach you everything they know, and then you practice and get even better than they were, and it just keeps getting passed down and passed down. And now we have this very assembly line mentality towards education, just because we have so many people, right? And that's completely changed. So I kind of wonder how education is going to change in the future. Like, how are we going to be teaching people, or will AI just completely make us obsolete? Who knows?
Turn us into batteries.
That's a rather pessimistic view.
Okay, let's be honest. We are the biggest assholes creatures on this planet, and whatever we 100%. Create is just going to be the worst of all of us. So it only makes sense that if you can dominate something, you will, right?
Yeah. I think that's human nature.
That's how humans got to where we are. So as long as, again, we make sure we stop making robots with fucking legs and arms, and they're all plugged into a wall, we'll be okay.
We should give them mermaid fins.
No, man, that mermaid will still come and fuck you up. I'm not messing with no hybrid robot animal creature
we
thing.
Primarily live on land, right? So even if they do get to a point where they're sentient and turn on us, they're just gonna like flop around like a fish until they get to the ocean,
or maybe,
and then they'll short circuit.
Or maybe they
waters.
Maybe they learn how to do the worm.
Oh shit!
Yeah, exactly.
And then they become really great at traveling.
Oh my god, I'm gonna have the
via
worst
the worm.
nightmares. The worst nightmares.
Could you imagine a robotic mermaid just doing the worm towards you really, really fast?
That's a nightmare right there, dude.
Just a
We should
drop
write a
fin
movie
right to the
about
chest.
Whoopah! This is trademark. Calling it right now. Trademarked. We're writing a movie about this.
I love it.
God damn it, Greg. Now I need to upgrade my bedside firearm from 9mm to 308 because fucking robot mermaids are coming.
I remember
after
the first time walking into your room, and I turn my head, and I'm literally looking down the barrel of a shotgun, like a sawed-off shotgun on a mount on your wall. The most terrifying moment of my life.
I feel like Jonny sleeps within, I don't know, in a 10-foot radius. There's probably about 5-6 firearms. Maybe.
Oh, absolutely.
Inside this room where I am right now, yes, there are. You can see my safe right there.
Oh yeah, I can see it. All right, Greg. So we are officially at an hour 4 minutes. Is there anything that you want to say? Anything you want to do to sort of tie this up, button it up, send us on our way, man?
And feel free to shout out Fredible too.
I talked about Fredible. It's fredible.com for any musicians out there. Give it a try. You play your audio into it. It writes out notes and sheet music for you and stuff like that. My closing note is bring on the robotic mermaids.
God damn it, Greg. Fuck you.
I love it.
Before we sign off, you got to participate in our jumbled survey.
Yes.
Okay? It's really simple. It's one question. And the question is, based on this picture I'm about to show you, was I assaulted by Santa Claus?
You certainly look very happy.
Look at that hand and answer the question.
Don't lead the guest. All right, the guest needs to make his own call on this one.
Oh, I have to decide.
Oh yeah,
you have
Can
to
I see
decide.
the picture again?
Did he or did he not get sexually assaulted by Santa Claus?
I can't really see Santa's pelvic region.
Look.
Well, it doesn't have to include the
leading
pelvis.
the witness,
right?
but look where that hand is.
It's pretty low. It's low, especially he's got sort of a Ninja Turtle like configuration to his hand. So that the pinky is going quite far south to the point where it's certainly questionable.
Look where my zipper line is. Oh,
it was the 90s. It was high pants.
Doing a little bit
of DJ diddling.
Ring pinky. A little ring pinky combo.
All right, yes or no?
I'm sorry, John.
That's another one on the tally.
Yeah.
I would seek
Johnny,
restitution.
I feel like this is gonna be lopsided, man. I feel like you just want people to know that it happened. You're raising awareness on Santa Claus abusers.
No, well, that is probably a legitimate concern, and I'm gonna look into that thoroughly. But it's more about when we first brought it up. My mom was so offended.
Why was she offended?
She's like, "You didn't get assaulted by Santa Claus," like.
Because she probably brought him there.
She's like, "Mom, look at this fucking picture."
Mom, look at his pinky.
Let him right into the rape lair.
So,
man.
I believe in science, and the best science that I can do to prove this is a survey.
Yep. I love this survey, and I'm loving the results so far.
It's the weirdest survey I've ever heard. And to what end? Like, what happens at the end of this, you know?
Well, I don't know. I got to find this Santa and kill him. What else do you want me to say?
Do what others have done.
There's nothing you can
John.
do. I don't want to touch Santa that way. That's weird.
You might get more presents, John.
Maybe.
Well,
have you been naughty or have you been real naughty?
Back payments.
Yep.
All right, Greg, thank you so much for coming on this episode. You know, I had this moment when you were talking about a lot of science and the different kinds of AI where I was like, this is a jumbled record. We have not mentioned dicks once yet. And as I was about to say this, you went into the hot dog, no hot dog. And I was like, there it is.
Well, you know, I am your long-term friend.
It's
so,
true.
Like-minded in
Yes.
many ways, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you so much for coming on. You're welcome anytime. Everyone, check out Fredible. I hope you guys like this episode. If you have more questions for Greg, feel free to send them to me, and I'll bug Greg about them. But anyways, Zach, take it away.
All right, Greg, we're just going to do a quick sign out here, so just hang on. I try to make it quicker every time. Thanks for listening, guys. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating, a review on iTunes. Let us know how we're doing so we can improve, or make changes, good or bad, whatever you guys like. Just let us know. Follow us on all social media at Jumbled Podcast. If you got any questions, send them via email to jumbledpodcast@gmail.com or johnny.jumbled@gmail.com. And want to give a shout out to our sponsor Audible. Head over to audibletrial.com/jumbled and get your free 30-day trial and a free audiobook. Support us over at Patreon, patreon.com/jumbled. And just keep listening wherever you are. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everybody you know about Jumbled. We want to keep growing this podcast, and we count on you guys to do a little bit of the legwork too. So thanks for listening, guys. We will see you guys next week for another episode of Jumbled, your favorite podcast.
About robot mermaids taking over the fucking world.
It's going to happen, man. We know it.
God damn it. I have a new phobia to add to the list.
Yeah. We'll see you guys.
God damn it. I'm not going to sleep tonight because of that.